Welcome back to the Saints Path to the Draft 2019, presented by Dixie. I'm John DeShazier here with Saints coach Sean Payton. And Sean, I know you guys go into every year off-season with wants and needs. And last year it seemed to be a little bit more glaring. You said, you wanted an edge rusher in the off-season, but it seems like the Saints have certainly fewer holes to plug this off-season.
Well, look, every year when it finishes, you start with your own team, and we've got a handful of players that we'll have to work through, and whether we're redoing a contract or given a new contract. I think that's where the focus has been for Mickey and I in the last several weeks. Now with the draft coming up, free agency coming up, you do kind of look at your roster. Where can you improve it with the right fit?
When you're coming into this draft class, it seems to be the depth along the defensive line. Is that something you're seeing with this draft class?
I think so. I mean, I think it's a good D-line draft in general. I think it's a good draft at corner, receiver, depending on what you're looking for. Interior offensive lineman, maybe a little bit more than the tackle position. Those are some things that coming off the winter meetings that you're able to see.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel like your roster coming out of the season, and as you mentioned, the nuances that you might have to be dealing with this offseason, but what do you think about the strength of your roster as presently constituted?
Well, look, we're experienced and strong in the offensive line, the same way in the defensive line. Now, be it we have to deal with an injury to Sheldon, and there's a couple, I would say, there's a couple positions that take, for instance, running back. How things unfold with Mark's contract, and that's an important position for us because both he and Alvin have given us a really good combination of runners. That same thing can exist throughout your roster. It might be your fourth linebacker, Craig Robertson, and the significance of his job and what he does. So those are the specifics regarding our team, the Saints, before we even get to the players outside that team.
Now, I don't know if we've had an opportunity to talk to you about it, but a staff change this offseason. Darren Rizzi comes in as a special teams coach. What was the thought process there? Because a lot of people might look at it and say, okay, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And yet, you look at his resume and you see that he can obviously get a lot of things fixed and a lot of things done well.
Yeah, well, first off, we felt our kicking game last year and the better part of the year before has really been as good as it's been since I've been here, and Mike Westhoff, gets a ton of credit for that. I just saw him yesterday. He's a heck of a football coach and brought a lot to us as a team. And there were 4 or 5 games this year that we won because of special teams. So the change wasn't as much. We're going with a new guy. Mike was getting ready to retire. We'll still invite him back and have him back as much as possible. Darren will be able to come in now. He's someone who's had great experience and great success in our league. So that was kind of a transition that took place at the end of the season.
Yeah. When you look at the success that he's had, was he one of those guys where you said, if he ever becomes available or if the opportunity ever presents itself, he's one of those guys that you'd be looking at?
Well, look, as a coach, you kind of keep track of, there's certain coaches in this league you may know. There's other coaches you may have just heard good things about. Tony Sperano, who was a close friend of mine, who passed away this past offseason. Tony was at Miami and hired Darren into the NFL, and Tony spoke extremely high about him. And then Dan Campbell worked with him, and then Jeff Ireland had been with him. And so those type of relationships and past experiences of guys on your staff are invaluable when you're trying to hire the right guy.
Yeah. Now we see the chatter about possible modifications to the replay process. We know that won't take place until, or a vote or thoughts about it until the owners' meetings. But is that something where you talk to peers and see what their feelings are on it? I know you said you like to kind of get a cross section of opinions on it.
Well, so the process begins like this. The very first week of meetings for the competition committee is this week, and they started this past Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and we meet with the coaches, we meet with the officials, we meet with the players' union. There's a lot of discussion that really begins that process. I thought we had 3 really good days here. there were a number of things discussed relative to the officiating and replay, but also player health and safety, where the game's going. And now we'll hone in on it and get a little bit more specific when we go to the spring meetings.
Yeah. When you're talking about that kind of thing, is that something where you have to, I guess, not necessarily sway people, but do you have to round up the necessary amount of votes to get something passed on that, or?
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think more than anything, you're having discussion on a variety of topics. Some are very easy. Some, in the matter of a few minutes, hey, that'll be something that'll be easy to change, and there's not a lot of debate or discussion. And other topics, when you start talking about replay, you want to make sure specifically, hey, if there's a tweak or a change, there's not something else that is a reactionary event that you look back on and say, we weren't thinking about that. So there's a lot that goes into it, and that's why you sit in a room, for a few hours and try to hammer out those things.
All right. I'm John DeShazier. That's Coach Sean Payton, and we're here at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis.